Leader during the French Revolution, Napoleon rose to power and became a famous figure for the people. 10 years later, Napoleon came into power as a result of the coup d'état Brumaire, which implemented the consulate. Napoleon, as emperor, wanted to spread the Grand Empire. Napoleon knew that with the Grand Empire came the responsibility of having a large influence in the economy. To do this, he deduced the idea to destroy Great Britain's economy with the support of the other European nations, and to bring the French economy to lead Europe. Believe it or not, this event was the start and the main cause of Napoleon's downfall, just shortly after his rise to power. This was known as the Continental System. However, Napoleon fell in the year 1814 because of 3 reasons. First, and most significantly, the Continental System. Secondly, growing discontent from other nations. And thirdly, the failed military attempts by France. The largest contributing factor to the downfall of Napoleon was the Continental System, as it created a massive anti-French movement. With this Continental System came the Berlin and Milan decrees, introduced in order to declare a state of blockade on the British islands. With the failure of this idea came a large growth in discontent from the nations that relied heavily on Great Britain for the support of their own economies. Not only did the foreign nations become economically unstable, but France's economy was hurt due to the French industry dilemmas, and a threat of overproduction arose. The invasion of Russia came from the design of the Continental System, and was a failure because Napoleon felt too confident in his ally support, and because he continued to advance no matter how bad the condition of his army was. Napoleon didn't properly prepare his men, as they had come to face problems of the miserable terrain, lack of food, and difficult transportation in Russia. The lack of good decision-making also didn't fully help his army succeed. Napoleon eventually had to retreat his army when Russia was getting support from the peasants as well as Finland. Napoleon's Continental System plan was not nearly as successful as planned due to the inferiority of France's navy as compared to that of Great Britain. Great Britain had been superior in their navy for many years. Not only did Great Britain have control of the naval power, they had much of the control of the major markets and most of the water. There was a large spread of discontent for Napoleon and his regime. This discontent came from the other nations surrounding the French Empire. It can also be said to have developed out of fear of the empire and Napoleon's actions. Austria was one of the countries that disapproved of Napoleon's actions and showed their discontent through governmental preparations. The anti-French movement in Austria was felt strongly, especially after military defeats. They therefore prepared again for a war with France in the year 1792. Austria even went as far as to call for a war of liberation in 1809 because they wanted to keep Napoleon and his Grand Empire out of Austria. A liberal nationalism arose from Spain because of the Peninsular War. The biggest support of nationalism against France came from counter-revolutionaries, those who wanted to restore the clergy and the Bourbons. Spain posed a threat because of their success in the Peninsular War and the help they got from other nations, Portugal and Great Britain. Germany was just really starting up after the French Revolution occurred in the 1790s. From Herder, they developed a concept of identity known as Volksgeist, a romantic movement to challenge not only French Enlightenment, but France as a nation. They developed this and made sure to declare it purely German nationalism from German roots. All of this anti-French nationalism kept Napoleon in check and really prevented large movements for the empire. Another one of the points that led to the fall of Napoleon developed from failed military attempts. One of the first failed military attempts by Napoleon under his Continental System came in the Peninsular War. This war came about because Napoleon wanted to keep his Continental System enforced in Spain, and the war ended up a failure because of British support of Spain. The guerrillas turned out to be a strategy of war, too strong for Napoleon. This war also proved how the Continental System was starting to have an effect on other parts of the government, such as the military. In the Battle of Leipzig, the French army was again defeated, this time by troops from Russia, Prussia, Austria, and Sweden. This major battle was fought in Leipzig, Saxony, and led to Napoleon's first exile to Elba in the year 1814. This was Napoleon's first real defeat, which came in the Napoleonic Wars. The 100 Days' War was the event that actually ended Napoleon's throne for good. It was his attempt to take over the Bourbons, who had come into power again. He failed to take control of France again, and lost a tough battle to the Duke of Wellington in 1815, which ended in his second and final exile to St. Helena. After researching, we discovered a perspective from historians Philip Dwyer and François Furet that saw that Napoleon's downfall actually originated from the previous leadership in France, from the years up to and during the revolutions. They make arguments that because of these developments, he cannot be blamed fully for his downfall. However, Napoleon was pretty original in his development in his position as emperor. Napoleon's downfall can be contributed to many factors, but the main one of those factors was indeed the creation of the Continental System. This system stemmed a lot of other reasons leading to his downfall, but overall this system was his downfall. Popular discontent and questionable military attempts and failures just added to the suffering of Napoleon's empire from the years 1799 to 1815.